Let's talk with Marcus in Illinois. Marcus is calling about free will. So we'll see how good we can answer this question. Marcus, welcome to the show.
We'll answer the question the same way no matter what, right?
Yeah, right. Have no choice in the matter.
Hi, am I on?
Yes, you are. Yes. Welcome to the show.
I'm a little nervous.
No worries.
It's all right. We don't bite.
We're chill.
Okay, so I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist for 6 years now, and I just want to say that thank you for doing the show because it works, because it worked for me. Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen both pretty much made an atheist out of me. So thanks.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Same here, by the way. So twinsies. What can we help you with today?
Right. So a couple episodes ago, I believe the hosts were V and Eric, and you guys were talking to someone about free will. Mm-hmm. And both of you said that you didn't believe in it. And then that got me thinking. So I started to look into like free will versus determinism and that stuff. And I have to say, I am completely confused. I have no idea what people are talking about. It is.
Yep, welcome
that's completely understandable.
I'm lost.
Well, let me clarify something. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let me clarify something real quick before we jump in. I do want to make sure that we start from the same place here. I think I remember the call that you're talking about where Eric and I were talking about free will specifically. And the reason we had such a problem with that call was because the caller was using free will and the existence of it to prove his other claims about God and about the universe. And our issue is not so much that, oh, we absolutely know that free will doesn't exist and here's why. It's more along the lines of, oh, well, free will is kind of, we're all kind of confused by it still, right? We don't really have a solid grasp on whether or not we do have free will or what kind of free will or how that works in the brain. So using that shaky foundation as a beginning point for a larger conversation about God is a problem because you haven't really verified the free will part yet. So it's not necessarily, and I don't want to speak for Eric, but for me, it's not necessarily that I don't believe it exists. It's more like, I really have no clue. I'm kind of where you're at, Marcus, with this whole, like, I don't really understand a lot of it. And a lot of people don't. So using that as the basis of an argument can get you off on the wrong foot. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page there.
Okay. So I guess where I'm at now, I'm in the middle of the road. Just whenever people talk about determinism and how everything is caused and then all of our decisions are just the effect of the cause, I still wonder because I can make choices that are against my well-being, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that would be the thing that makes me a free agent in that discussion. Like I could make decisions based on what's happening around me, which would make them determined, but I still have the choice, so I am lost on that part.
Free will and choice are not mutually exclusive. Like I don't think anyone would argue that my computer has a free will, but it makes thousands of choices every second. Like it has to determine whether it does, like, is input X active? If so, then do Y. If not, then do Z. So choice and free will are not mutually exclusive from each other. And I just want to say I'm kind of in the same spot as V with regards to the existence of free will. I don't know. My understanding is that it looks like everything might be deterministic, but then also if you consider quantum fluctuations and how they are potentially truly random, that might have enough of an impact to actually make free will a thing. But I'm not going to pretend that I have any in-depth understanding on the subject myself.
Okay, thanks. I didn't want to make any arguments from personal incredulity and say, well, I have no idea how else I would be making choices, therefore I have free will. Mm-hmm. So,
No, and that's a good
guess
instinct
I'll
because I
yeah.
think a lot of people make that decision based on either incredulity or just an appeal to emotion, right? It makes me feel uncomfortable to think that I might not have free will, therefore I must have it, right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree that we appear to have free will. There definitely is the appearance of free will. And so for some people, they take that and say, well, I can't consider how my choices that I appear to be making freely could possibly be anything else. And they extend that out there. But like it could just be an illusion. And the real
Also,
answer is we don't know.
One interesting thing that I came across is this conversation was being had around free will, and someone made a point very similar to yours, Marcus, which is, well, I can choose to do something in a certain situation, right? And that means I have free will. And the response was, well, how did you decide to make that choice? Did you have a choice about whether or not you wanted to do X or Y? And most of the time that's a no, right? Usually I don't necessarily choose to want to do a thing. I want to do a thing and then I can choose whether or not I follow through with that. But, we can kind of go backwards and be like, okay, well, you made the choice to do the thing, but did you make the choice to want to do the thing? So there are a lot of really fun ways to juggle with this and sit with it and mull on it. And honestly, like, that's my favorite kind of conversation to have over a drink. So like, if you're ever in Austin, hit us up. I'm sure we'd be happy to have that conversation. But yeah, in general, I just think it's best to avoid making broader claims about the universe, about God, any ontological statement based on the existence of free will, just because anybody really who is either, not a professional at this or intellectually dishonest is going to fall somewhere in the same place that you, me, and Viced all do, which is, okay, we really don't know very, very much about this yet. There are still too many options here, so there's no one definitive answer.
Okay, cool. That gives me some things to think about, and I'll watch the video over again. But I called because a friend of mine he's a Christian, and we were talking about this. And when I brought up the idea that we may not have free will as we usually think about it, I think his exact words were, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard."
Well, as a Christian, it's hard to top a lot of what they hear.
The Bible doesn't even say that we have free will. That's just the default answer to the problem of evil. It's like, oh, it's got to be free will. It's like, no, that doesn't answer the problem, because that means that free will and evil have to coexist. Like, if you have free will, you have to also have evil, which then means you lose your free will when you go to heaven. Is heaven really heaven if you don't have free will?
Yeah, I brought it up to him, and he was talking about how the arguments within Christian circles about free will and predestination, and I brought up if God knows everything that we will do, then we don't have free will in the first place. But
yeah, that's kind of my go-to answer whenever someone tells me that I was never a true Christian. Because really, if you think about it, if I was a Christian at the time, but fell away in some future time, and I was never a true Christian, that means that my falling away was predetermined and outside of my control. Therefore, I do not have free will. So anytime anyone says, oh, well, you were never a Christian, they are essentially telling you that they believe on some level the idea of predestination, or that they haven't thought through it at all.
My go-to for that one is that the Bible, like, it can be interpreted differently, but most Christians choose to interpret there's certain verses as saying the Bible directly says that God is involved in making children in their mother's wombs. And so God chooses which people to make and which people to not make. He has an infinite selection of potential people that he could make. He knows all of the choices that all of these potential people will ever make. So he could just choose to only make the ones that are going to end up in heaven, but he doesn't. So even if our individual choices are technically free somehow, the fact that he chooses to make the people that he knows will make these choices kind of removes that freedom and puts all the responsibility back on him.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So thank you guys for taking my call. The reason I called in was it all kicked off with hearing the Oedipus story, but prophecies don't exist. So, Yeah.
Well, if you have
thanks
more
for
fun
taking the call.
conversations with your Christian friend, feel free to call in again. We'd love to talk to you.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Marcus. Oh my goodness. You guys, we need callers. Like, come on. This is your chance. This is your chance to run by, whether you're an atheist, you're an agnostic, you're a pagan, you're a Wiccan, you're a Christian, like whatever. If you have questions about evolution, like now, like if you call in next week with these questions, I'm going to shame you live on camera.